Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr. And this is episode 93, The Last Zombie Hunter, Part 2. And we are in the second part of Fred Stein's story. You might remember, if not, last episode was Part 1. And he is, of all things, an antiques dealer who has managed to survive a pretty awful zombie apocalypse. And here we go. The more I think about the rules, the more they seem like standard zombie horror show monsters. The only thing I can think is some asshole in a lab somewhere thought about weaponizing viruses and decided, what if it looked like a zombie movie? It doesn't matter anymore, though. Now I've just got to find a way to live through it. The one thought I have running through my head is the hope that maybe they aren't sustaining. They don't seem to be dropping on their own, not yet. But I can't imagine any way they will be able to keep going without food and water. They can't just subsist on human and, I've seen it, animal flesh, can they? These are the happy thoughts I have the next morning after learning about Jack. It's been a couple of days, and I need to get water. The first time I went out, it was at night. I thought that would be easier. Maybe they slept. Maybe they wouldn't be able to see me in the dark. But it wasn't a help. I don't know if they sleep randomly or not at all, but they're quite active at night. And while I couldn't see without a flashlight, and damn, it's easy to forget how dark it is without modern lights around, they weren't bothered. Not as bothered, anyway. So, though it freaks me out no less, I go out in daylight now, mostly. I have a pretty good amount of vision in most directions around my store. I take my water harness. It's a couple of 2-gallon jugs, nice strong ones, not likely to get pierced by a stray rock if I drop it, with a padded strap that goes over my shoulders. I still have water. I never want to run out, so I do my runs when I'm down to about half a gallon or so. That way if I get spotted by the zombies and trapped in my shop, I have a couple of days' worth. They seem to love crowding around wherever prey is, but if you stay quiet long enough, they usually drift off or get distracted by something else. And I have a trick or two to get them away from my shop in dire need. So it's time to get more. This, of course, is also my only chance to bathe, since I don't use my precious water for cleaning. I'm looking forward to it. I keep my water use down to less than a gallon a day, far less if I'm under siege, but it's always good to get properly clean. You don't want to know my toilet habits, except to say I try to do it outside as much as possible, since I'm not sure if my sewer pipes will eventually back up, and because there's no damn water to flush. Still, emergencies have happened. One of my current projects is a way to divert gutter water to barrels on my upstairs deck so I can flush. Well, flush and make drinkable water. One of the things I got on one of my excursions was a large amount of bleach. That is how I make my water potable. I don't have fuel to burn fires all the time, and it wouldn't be safe anyway. Last time I tried, it got unwanted zombie attention. Fortunately, I did it as a test with a campfire-style fire a block away, in line of sight of one of my windows. It drew scores of the foul things. So, no heat, though that won't be a real problem for months. Besides, I have winter clothes, and I've learned to sleep fully clothed. So, yep, I put a cap full of bleach into a gallon or so of water. Makes it taste like crap, but I've never gotten sick. Can't tell you how tempting that water at the creek is where I fill my jugs. I just want to duck my head in and drink and drink and drink. But even before the zombies, I wouldn't have drunk from the creek, E. coli and all that. Now, since I don't know all the ways the zombies spread, it would be insane to take that chance. My food came from several trips to several places around town when things had died down. Before that, I just ate from my stores at home, quietly. Anything that didn't have to be cooked, basically. I tried to eat it in order by how fast it was going to go bad. So that went to dried and canned food in a big hurry. When I went out on food runs, I stuck to food that was also dried or canned. I had to. You wouldn't believe the smell of a grocery store after a few days of no electricity. Worse, the smells kept changing, so I couldn't even get used to it. I threw up 3 times on my first run. I should have gone to Walgreens sooner for food. They never had much fresh food, so the smell wasn't nearly as bad, except for the bodies. That smell, well, awful, at least never changed. Try going from rotting deli to rotting meat counter to rotting fruit to curdled dairy in the space of a few minutes, and you'll know what I mean. I also grabbed a bit of candy. I mean, why the hell not? I have toothpaste and toothbrushes at home. I couldn't let it all be healthy. And I grabbed some multivitamins. I mean, who knows what my diet will be like in a few months or a year or two. But if I can take a piece of a multivitamin every day, a single bottle can last me practically forever. It should be just enough of everything to keep me alive in that department. So if I have to eat nothing but jerky from a 7-Eleven or something, I won't get scurvy like some goddamn pirate. Still, my food is pretty boring because I really limited the canned food part after my first run. Too much water, metal, and glass weight. Lots of dried foods instead. I tell you, I could live forever and not eat any more trail mix. It's perfect for my situation, but I've had at least a little bit every day since my first food run, and I'm sick to death of it. Even saving the M&Ms for the end isn't even fun anymore. And the candy goes within a day of each run, believe me. And though my food contains a pretty high amount of sodium, I find myself really craving salt. So my last food run included a search for a nice big canister of iodized table salt. Iodized for the same reason as the multivitamins. Plus, I realized that the ones I took happened to not have iodine in them. Amazing how much you can learn by just reading the bottle. Anyway, between my iodized salt and my multivitamins, I just need calories, which have to have at least a small amount of protein. So, trail mix, plus a bunch of other stuff I won't bore you with. So, off to get water. I let myself down one of my rope ladders and tie it up just above head height and set off. The morning is clear and cool. The zombie outbreak started on May 11th, 2020, a Monday. Insert lame joke here. Well, I say that, but frankly, I miss the boring inanity of life before Big Z drops its stench on everything. Now it's June 28th, I think. I tried to keep track. I really fucking tried. But I had a couple of incidents and may have lost a day or two here or there. Maybe I'll figure out a way to get the correct date. Meet someone who kept better track, maybe. Find a correctly set electronic watch. Determine the goddamn solstice. I don't know. Anyway, I've learned to have thoughts running through my head without really losing my concentration, because losing my concentration outside of my house means possibly being eaten. But keeping my thoughts out of my head isn't exactly easy. So, I had all those things about calendars and the sun and so on running through my head as I prepared my home and slowly made my way to the creek. I saw a quail, just a normal, everyday quail. It made me realize how hungry I was for some meat. But without a way to cook it, it didn't even make sense to consider how to catch the quail. I have some jerky, and I eat a small piece every day, partly for the protein, partly for the flavor, but it isn't quite the same. I imagine biting into a nice, warm, juicy chicken leg. It's like a small torture I do to myself. Maybe someday. The creek, fortunately, is nice and quiet. No zombies around. I do my usual scouting. There was a zombie in the water 100 yards downstream the first time. A dead one. I'm assuming zombie, but it's a fair assumption. Anyway, bleach or no bleach, I don't want to get my drinking water from a stream with a rotting corpse just upriver. Nor do I want to bathe in it. So, my upstream scout goes well. I go up to where the first small creek meets the stream. I don't see the point of scouting both bodies of water, and if one is a little dirty, which it probably isn't by my standards, the other one is probably clean. I head back downstream to my swimming spot. I picked it out special. It's got line of sight in all directions. It has 2 little boulders side by side for me to hide my stuff between while I swim. And the boulders are close to the stream, so I can duck almost underwater and have a way to be out of sight when I want to be. I follow my rules. First, I fill my water bottles. So, 4 gallons of water are mine. If things go bad, as long as I can grab them, the trip won't be for nothing, and I won't have to risk another. Then I take my shorts and my shirt off. I am wearing somewhat baggy board shorts with no underwear. I am not taking off my shoes, so I want my pants to come off and back on quickly. Same with the simple t-shirt. When the weather gets cold again in a few months, I'm not sure how I'll handle it. Probably sponge baths, or maybe I'll get used to cold water swims. For now, it's comfortable enough. I dunk my clothes in the water and don't exactly get them completely clean, but better than they were. Laundry is a real issue for me. Then I put them on the rock closest to the water to dry. My pistol and knife on their belt is just below them and right next to the water. I won't be far from them. So, naked except for my shoes, I take my swim. My rule on this is swim quietly. I've seen zombies in the water. They don't swim the normal way. They wade or they flail around while they float. I've never seen one that sank. There seems to be a certain amount of gaseous decay inside that goes on. It keeps them buoyant. I don't know what would happen if one really did sink. Do they need to breathe? I've heard them breathe, so probably. But maybe it's just an instinct. So much I don't know. Anyway, I don't splash around. I swim a bit, always looking around carefully. For zombies, of course, but also humans. Humans are a potential help and a potential danger, depends on the situation. But I haven't seen any humans for quite a while, as I mentioned, so mostly I'm looking for zombies. If one wanders my way but doesn't spot me, I'll quietly get back to my stuff, put on my clothes, and figure out the best way to get away safely. And if they do, well, I have a series of thoughts on what to do about that. One is to simply duck under the water, swim a bit away, then come up and see what happens. They aren't terribly clever. But, nope, the swim goes smoothly as well. I would bring soap. I've got some, but really what's the point? If I really need to, I can soap up a little at home. It doesn't take much water if you're careful. And I'm doing a full swim. Maybe in the winter, when I'll have to be sponge bathing, it'll be time to bring along the Irish Spring. The way back, I have to constantly remind myself to not just be as careful, but more so. Another of my rules. Bad enough to be spotted going wherever I'm going. Worse to bring zombies or worse humans back to my home. My head is constantly on a swivel. I was also careful on the way out, or at least I thought so. When I get to my home, I have 2 problems. One is that I'm coming at my house from a small copse of trees with the open area in front of me. The moment I step into the open, a zombie I hadn't heard or seen comes around the corner of my house and spots me immediately. The other, much worse, is that my rope ladder has been pulled up. Someone is in my house. And that's the end of the story for this week. If you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, CryptoBiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter or Facebook. And thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Words and music, copyright 2019, CryptoBiography LLC. All rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.